Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Welcome, Catholic pilgrims, to day 284 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. Have you ever felt abandoned by God? You all know that I did once upon a time back when I was a older teenager and into my 20s. I definitely did feel abandoned by God, and as you all know, I turned my back on him because I felt like he turned his back on me. And even Christ himself cries out from the cross, my God, why have you abandoned me?" In the very human side of him, he cries out when he's feeling the weight of all of our sin, and all that sin, it had to have made him feel utterly and completely removed from the Father. And so he felt abandoned. And that's what sin does. It really can make us feel like we are abandoned because sometimes, the sin that we commit removes us from God. And then we feel like he doesn't care and we don't feel his love. Or the sins that other people commit that hurt us, like in my case, we don't understand why he doesn't run to protect us or defend us. And so we feel abandoned. And then sometimes accidents happen and we don't understand why God allowed such a bad thing to happen. And so we feel abandoned. But Sister Faustina today is going to talk about how she knows God never, ever abandons us. So we'll be reading from Notebook 5, numbers 1406 through 1411. Today, the Lord gave me to know interiorly that he would never abandon me. He gave me to know his majesty and his holiness, as well as his love and mercy towards me. And he gave me a deeper knowledge of my own wretchedness. However, this great misery of mine does not deprive me of trust. On the contrary, the better I have come to know my own misery, the stronger has become my trust in God's mercy. I have come to understand how all this depends on the Lord. I know that no one will touch a single hair of my head without his willing it. When I was receiving Holy Communion today, I noticed in the cup a living host, which the priest gave to me. When I returned to my place, I asked the Lord, "Why was one host alive, since you are equally alive under each of the species?" The Lord answered me, "That is so. I am the same under each of the species, but not every soul receives me with the same living faith as you do, my daughter, and therefore I cannot act in their souls as I do in yours." I was present at Holy Mass celebrated by Father Safotsko. During the Mass, I saw the infant Jesus who, touching the priest's forehead with his finger, said to me, "His thought is closely united to mine, so be at peace about what concerns my work. I will not let him make a mistake, and you should do nothing without his permission." This filled my soul with great peace as regards everything that has to do with this work. Today, the Lord Jesus is giving me an awareness of himself and of his most tender love and care for me. He is bringing me to understand deeply how everything depends on his will and how he allows certain difficulties precisely for our merit, so that our fidelity might be clearly manifest. And through this, I have been given strength for suffering and self-denial. Today, December 7th, 1937, is the eve of the feast of the Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary. During the midday meal, in an instant, God gave me to know the greatness of my destiny, that is, his closeness, which for all eternity will not be taken away from me, and he did this in such a vivid and clear fashion that I remained wrapped up in his living presence for a long time, humbling myself before his greatness. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. O divine Spirit, Spirit of truth and of light, dwell ever in my soul by your divine grace. May your breath dissipate the darkness, and in this light may good deeds be multiplied. O divine Spirit, Spirit of love and of mercy, you pour the balm of trust into my heart. Your grace confirms my soul in good. giving it the invincible power of constancy. O divine Spirit, Spirit of peace and of joy, you invigorate my thirsting heart and pour into it the living fountain of God's love, making it intrepid for battle. O divine Spirit, my soul's most welcome guest, for my part, I want to remain faithful to you, both in days of joy and in the agony of suffering. I want always, O Spirit of God, to live in your presence. O divine Spirit, who pervade my whole being and give me to know your divine triune life, and lead me into the mystery of your divine being, initiating me into your divine essence. Thus, united to you, I will live a life without end. I was grocery shopping this past week, and my bagger was an older gentleman, a very deeply religious old black man. I love their spirit. And there's just something about the way that old, black people just cling to their faith in such a devout way. I absolutely admire and love it. I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't know exactly how to put into words, but they have such a trust and such an assurance, and it's quite inspiring. Anyway, we walked out to my car and we got to talking about our faith. And he was talking about fasting and prayer and everything like that. And we had a really good conversation. And at one point I told him, I said, well, I did turn my back on God once because I thought he had abandoned me. And he looked at me and he said, but he didn't. I said, I know that now, but I didn't at the time. And he's like, we're like little kids with our parents. When we get mad and we get frustrated with something that they've done or didn't do, we throw a temper tantrum and we stomp off to our room and we throw a fit and we blame them for everything. And then when we're done, we look and we see that they're right there. They're still right there, waiting to give us a hug and receive us and telling us to calm down, that you're right there, everything's going to be okay. He's like, that's exactly how we act with God. And I said, yes, that's very, very true. That's exactly what I did. He's like, but Christ is always right there beside you. No matter what you're going through, through the joys and through the bad, he's always right there. He's never going to leave you. And I was like, I know. I know. I wish I had realized that at the time. And he said, yes, but now you know. And so and you can spread that message to other people. And I said, you're absolutely right. And so I was thinking about that conversation today when I read the very first line of our readings today. Sister Faustina says, today the Lord gave me to know interiorly that he would never abandon me. And this is hard to fully understand when we are in the thick of suffering. Or maybe we have an illness, or maybe, we are isolated from family and friends and we feel so lonely. Or maybe we've had a tragedy happen in our lives. We've lost a loved one, or we've lost our job, or, we've been abandoned by family and friends, maybe for our beliefs. There are so many things. And when we're in the throes of that suffering and that agony, we really do have this tendency to believe that, God has abandoned us. And it's so hard to realize that he's right there. He's right there, lifting us up, holding us together, because Christ knows. He knows what it feels like. Even though the Father never abandoned him, he still understands that feeling because the very human side of him felt it on the cross. But Mother Mary was right there with him. He was not abandoned by her, and he wasn't abandoned by the Father. And it's so important for us to realize that we are not free from suffering just because we call ourselves Christians. In fact, there may be more suffering because of it, actually. But I would point you to another part in 1409 where Sister Faustina writes, this is just a great little paragraph. I'm just going to read the whole thing. Today, the Lord Jesus is giving me an awareness of himself and of his most tender love and care for me. He is bringing me to understand deeply how everything depends on his will and how he allows certain difficulties precisely for our merit, so that our fidelity might be clearly manifest. And through this, I have been given strength for suffering and self-denial. Now, I definitely have had my share of suffering, as probably all of you listening. But each one of those difficulties that God does allow can bring about merit for us. It really can. If we invite Christ into that suffering with us. If we do what I did when I was 17 and we walk away and say, I'm going to do this my own way and I'm not going to run to you, Lord, it will not gain any merit. It just won't. It will just be misery and suffering for no reason, for just no reason. And it will be awful. And it will have such a despairing impact on our lives. But if we invite Christ in and say, I know that you know how it feels to suffer. Please be with me during this time. He will come. He will be there. He will never abandon you. And that doesn't mean that the suffering will just poof, go away. But it will mean that you will be able to bear it. You will be given strength for suffering and self-denial. And it can be so hard to remember that and to truly believe it and trust in that when we are, hurting so badly or just so sad, maybe even depressed. Just invite him in. That's really when it all changed for me, is when I just said, I can't do this on my own anymore. Please help me. And I look back now at all the different sufferings that I've gone through, and I realize that God was, allowing those things to happen, as hard as that is to understand sometimes, so that I might be able to help others through what I've gone through. People who have been through similar things, people who have been through sexual assault, people who have been through miscarriages, people who have, had their parents divorced. I can be there and be some kind of help to them, to say, I know and I understand. And also to offer that suffering for someone else who needs it. Maybe somebody who hasn't found Christ yet, or somebody who's just got a hardened heart. Maybe your suffering can merit something for them. You just never know what God can do. He can just do amazing things with our suffering, which sounds so weird. But it is a beautiful plan, and it helps the suffering that we go through in this fallen world. It helps it to have a purpose. Otherwise, it's just meaningless. So, invite Christ in to whatever you're going through. And if you're not going through something terribly difficult right now, if something comes down the line, just invite him in. He will never, ever abandon you. So that is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here for day 285. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.